is unrecognizable after 2 years under the national security law, which gets to the point that Ms. Kissel just made.
Without objection, so ordered.
And to the point that Mr. Bethel made, but expanding on a little bit more, is the World Health Organization is not salvageable with regard to its infiltration by the CCP.
Without objection, so ordered. Thank you. Chair now recognizes Ms. McClain from Michigan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for being here today. Ms. Kessel, I think you said something very insightful that really caught my attention, is we got to have some red lines. And to quote you, you said, we can't go there. And I'm experiencing this a little bit in my state. I mean, if you look at the CCP, they're not our friend. I don't think anyone would disagree with that, right? That's pretty bipartisan. You know, from the intermittent camps, the abrasive military posture in the South China Sea, and the crackdown in Hong Kong, it's clear they're not our friend. And I would also want to make sure that my ladder's on the right wall, and I have a good understanding that if you are a Chinese company, you must turn over all of your data to the CCP if they ask for it. Is that correct? Am I okay. So I just want to talk about some facts. We in Michigan have the Goshen plant that is very near and dear, and it's a very sensitive topic to me. It's being built close to Ferris State University, which was recently given an accreditation for its Information Security and Intelligence System program. This is a university, American university, right? Michigan also has a military facility that is actively training Taiwanese soldiers to combat China in the event of an invasion. The Goshen plant is being constructed just miles from this facility. I'm not much for coincidences, but I'd like to get your thoughts on, do you think that's a coincidence? We have a Chinese-owned company, and the only spot they can figure out that is feasible for them to build at is next to a university and next to a military base. Anybody think that's a coincidence? I'd just like to get your thoughts on that. Now here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. Our legislator, our governor, is going to give that company, Chinese-owned company, $800 million. I'm with you, Ms. Kissel. Am I saying your name correct?
Yes, Kissel, like missile.
You can't go there. Why are we allowing this to happen? It baffles my mind. We talk about, well, it's going to create jobs. Jobs for whom? I'm very concerned about that, very, and I'm not much for coincidences. So I'd like to start is, can anyone explain to me how the Chinese companies are bound to the CCP? Because when I say that, some folks back home across the aisle think I'm crazy. But am I correct in that statement? And can you explain how the Chinese, we'll start with you, Ms. Kissel, how the Chinese companies are bound to the CCP?
So I would refer the committee to a speech that Secretary Pompeo delivered on civil-military fusion in San Francisco, where he outlined this threat and the laws of China that compel any company based in China to divulge any information to the party at any time, in any manner, if it's choosing. I believe that all the information that you need is in those remarks. In terms of—
But for the people, for the average American listening right now, you're talking to the people of the great state of Michigan. In layman's terms, what does that mean?
China is a party state. The function of China is not to better the interests of the Chinese people. It is to promote, strengthen, and expand the power, influence, and reach of the Chinese Communist Party. All activity done by Chinese companies or within the Chinese borders accrues to the power of the party.
But what happens if it's a company here owned by China?
There are no independent Chinese companies.
So even if they're on our soil, if it's a Chinese company, everything will get divulged at any point in time to the Chinese government.
Correct, and I would also note for the honorable member that many of the intellectual property thefts suffered by American companies do not only occur in mainland China. I spoke to one Fortune 500 CEO who told me that the greatest Chinese IP threat that he suffered was here in the United States. by a party, shall we say, directed individual who was directed to.
And this is what I need to get our lawmakers in the state of Michigan to understand. China is not our friend. They are not our friend educationally. They are not our friend militarily. And they are not our friend economically. One last question, and if we could keep it to a yes or no, it'd be great. Do you think the Goshen plant is an example of China making a long-term investment in the American business community to advance their interests and perhaps gain information, private information, from American citizens?
Yes, but let's not give them too much credit as long-term thinkers. Let's remember, they almost destroyed their country several times over, the Cultural Revolution, now with this debt crisis, et cetera. And I really want to push back strongly on that notion that somehow they're these magical long-term planners. They're not.
So you mean we could be in danger right now?
I'm saying
if this
that
plant goes
we
in.
have great advantages, as the former congressman laid out. We should use them. We need to recognize the nature of the threat, and we need to construct not just a defensive strategy, but an offensive strategy.
But it starts with, you just can't go there. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm over. I yield back. Thank you.
Gentlelady yields back. Chair now recognizes Mr. Fallon from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. And I want to thank all the witnesses very much for coming in. We've heard some of the same common themes as far as China is an existential threat. They pose an existential threat to the